decides to take up the sport of cycling at age 60, committing to a cross-country bicycle trip after having never ridden more than 8 miles prior? Lin Bruce does, that's who. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how Lin's view of getting from point A to point B has changed and what it really takes to find fulfillment in midlife and beyond. Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Late Starters Club, giving you the inspiration, mindset, and tools you need to start something midlife and beyond. Remember, it's never too late to follow your dreams.
Hey.
It's Andrea Vall here. I am the host of Late Starters Club, and I am super excited to have cyclist Lin Bruce on our podcast today. Welcome, Lin.
Thank you so much.
So Lin is, she lives up in Minnesota and is a retired massage therapist, mother of 4, grandmother of 8, and wife of a retired librarian. And you were teaching, oh no, your husband was teaching yoga. Is that correct?
Right. That's right.
Yeah. But you're a self-proclaimed late blooming cross-country bicyclist. And your first ride was in honor of your 60th birthday. So now an octogenarian. That's awesome. You do not look it at all. I'm going to say you look just radiant. So, but 23 years since your first big bike ride, and we're going to dive into what it was like to have you get started, how you got started, and all of that. I'm so excited to have you on this show because it's such an inspiration.
Thanks.
So I like to ask people, if you were to sum up or describe your life in one sentence, what would that be?
Well, the sentence could get very long.
Yeah.
However, I'm from an era where married women were stay-at-home housewives and moms, and that was the role that I carried out. And I have, as my life has gone on and I've aged and my children have launched, I have found bicycling, which allows me to be bigger than I thought I could and gives me great joy. So I would say I've gone from being a very traditional stay-at-home woman of a particular era to a woman who is testing her wings and loving the flying.
That is wonderful. I love that. And definitely pushing boundaries. I think that people think that, people just coast, and you're not coasting for sure. That's awesome. So, what has been your biggest takeaway or the biggest key to your success as you started something later? I mean, people don't think about taking up cycling, cross-country cycling at the age of 60. And what was that key to doing that successfully?
I was approaching that 60th birthday, and I was feeling as though I was going to be getting old. At that time, I thought 60 was old. Well, now I'm 83, and so I don't think that anymore. But I did at that time, and I really thought that there were no more possibilities in life, and that things were pretty much over, and I was just going to slide downhill and to some boggy spot for the rest of my life. And it was a really, really bad flat spot in my life. And I knew I needed to shake things up. And I justified it because I was going to celebrate my birthday in some way. And the some way showed up in a little ad I saw that said, cross-country bicycle trip for women over 50 led by Woman Tours. Well, I didn't know Woman Tours at that time, but I do now. It's a company that does bike trips for women, very good ones. So they had this ad, women over 50, riding from California to Florida, starting on March 13th. Well, March 13th is my birthday.
Oh, wow.
I figured, here's a sign. Here's what I can do. And better than that, this company was already planning everything, and I could call it my celebration. So I signed up. That's how that happened. Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
wonderful. And how did you obviously trained and then for that, did you train for that ride at that?
I did. I did as training as much as I knew training. When I had signed up, the farthest I had ever ridden was 8 miles around my little town.
Wow.
So, how was I going to do this? Well, what I learned uh, is that you do it one pedal stroke at a time, and that gets you on down the road.
Mhm.
And I did train. I had signed up in October. I live in Minnesota.
A little
Winter
chilly.
comes much earlier, and 23 years ago, we got snow much earlier than we do now. So my training was on a stationary bike in the basement. So I that's how I trained, and I just figured that was gonna that was going to be it. Well,
Right.
it's what I had, and that's where I started. I think sometimes you start with what you have, and you do what you can with that, and then you move on from there. And the reality was, once I got on that trip with the training that I had put in, I got stronger every day because I rode every day. So yeah, I trained. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely one pedal stroke at a time. I love that for
Yeah.
sure. So now, what was the distance again total on that?
Uh, it's over 3,000 miles. That
Yeah.
was
Wow.
that was it. That was the way to start.
Yeah. That's starting in the deep end right there. 8 miles to 3,000.
Yeah,
That's
it was.
amazing. That's amazing. Now, have you gone cross country since then? Have you done that same ride, or are you just doing different types of rides?
I have not done that same ride. Yes, I have gone cross country. I've gone from Washington to Maine, down the Pacific coast, diagonal on the US from Virginia to Oregon. And the bicycle world knows that route as the Trans Am.
Mm.
Done the Trans Am, and I've gone down the Mississippi River and around Lake Superior. I do what I love is signing up for a long commercial bike trip every year.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're really long, but they're not, they're significant for me
Mhm.
still.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That
took one just this last year in 2022, and it was only 400 miles. It was crossed Iowa. It was not Ragbri. The weather was dreadful, cold and rainy the first 3 days. I mean, 40 degrees, and then it got up to 90, and it was headwinds and hills like you can't imagine. You think Iowa's flat, it's not. But anyway, the point is that I am still riding. And even with that challenging ride, and a few days after it was done, I asked myself, so would you go back and do that again? And the answer is yes, I would. Yeah, I still love it. Still love it. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And that leads us perfectly to our next question, which is if you could tell your younger self, maybe it's earlier this summer, maybe much younger self, what you what some advice, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, I would tell my much younger self, my younger self as a new wife, a new person in a relationship, that self-care is not selfish. That self-care allows you to have the personal stamina to do what you need to in your life and to deal well with whatever you encounter. So I would say self care is not selfish. Self care is very smart.
That's great. That's great. And I think as women, we sometimes um, ignore that
Yep.
part and
Yep.
put ourselves last when we really need to be putting that mask on ourselves first, right? The oxygen mask on ourselves
Such
first.
a good
So they
analogy
tell
we
us,
have now. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So I want to dive a little bit into like what prompted you. You talked a little bit about what prompted you to start this endeavor. Um, let's dive a little bit deeper into that. Like, it was your 60th birthday and you were feeling flat. what else was coming up for you to kind of cause you to start this whole thing and keep going with cycling? What changed for you in that?
Good question, of course. As I said, I was heading that birthday. It seemed like it was an ending rather than a beginning. I needed a sense of optimism. I didn't know what truly. It was not that methodical. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't even know what I wanted. If it had been a rock climbing opportunity that showed up, he'd be interviewing me as a rock climber. I don't know. It was a bike trip, and that was just right. I had I was an active massage therapist at that time. I didn't tell anybody what I was going to do because it felt like it was really selfish to be using all that time and all that money just for me. But I told my clients a couple weeks before. Had two kinds of responses. Oh, Lynn, that's awesome. Hooray for you. And the other was, you're leaving me without massage for a month? How can you do that? Very angry. So out of those two camps, people all but one came back. And I had the support of family. I have the biggest thing is that the thing that's kept me going is it is so satisfying to me. Every day I get to my agenda is very simple, and I love the simplicity. I start here, I ride to there. The next day, I start here, I ride to there. And I do that day after day. And each day I reach the destination. And all those destinations, clearly defined destinations that I've achieved under my own steam, I have pedaled my bicycle to get there. And all of those daily destinations get me to the bigger one. It is such an analogy, such a metaphor for taking on anything in my life that I do a little bit, and then from there I do a little bit, and that moves me to my goal, whether it's getting all the closets cleaned or getting thousands of miles across the US or building an empire. I haven't built an empire, but I'm sure it's applicable there too.
I'm sure it's still one stone at a time, right? When you're one brick at a time, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think that's the thing that is so powerful is we don't realize how these little steps continue to move us towards the goal, and we feel like maybe we're not getting there. We feel like we're not moving fast enough or whatever that might be. But you look back and you are able to see that progress, and it must be that must be very satisfying in a very linear way for you.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about, one of the questions that I like to ask as well, like when you have felt overwhelmed in this endeavor, how did you get your mojo back?
Great. Because on every long bike trip, there has been a point where I have wanted to call Bob. Bob is my husband of 63 years. I wanted to call Bob and say, come get me. I'm done. Or meet me at the airport. I'm finished. And I haven't ever done that. I haven't ever quit. And the not quitting involves several things, I think, for me. And that's being able to find some humor in the stuff that's so hard. And being able to at least smile about it, or, maybe some hours later laugh about it, or maybe thinking and laughing, we must be crazy to think that we're working so hard and this is fun and this is a vacation. Isn't that funny? And so that laughing and then connecting with other people. On a bike trip, there are other riders. On the rides I do, we don't ride together, but we encounter each other and we can hear each other's stories and we can commiserate and we can be confidential and we can support or we can cheer loudly, whatever. So I think the connecting and the humor and asking for help, that's really big. I'm from an era where you didn't ask for help. You know, in my family, if you couldn't do it, you didn't get to do it. So you didn't ever ask for help. So that's a big learning piece and a big curve, still learning curve. And the receiving help.
Yeah.
That's another hard one. Can I give you some help? Oh, no. I've got it. Take the help. So the receiving the help and the connecting and asking for help and being willing to recommit as often as you need to. Oh, I can't do this anymore. Can I do this? I can do this for the next little bit.
Yeah.
Can I do this? I can do this. Those things, that amalgam of stuff, those amalgam of those points, help me get my enthusiasm back and my sense of confidence and possibility.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That's great. I am a big proponent of humor as well. I do stand-up comedy on the side. I don't know if I shared that with you.
Whoa. Good.
So, yeah, I think that humor is definitely a fantastic way to get through hard times, and we can all kind of laugh at some of the ridiculousness of that as well. That is definitely probably not a vacation that many people would wanna think about taking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So one of the things, another thing too is that I like to ask my guests is, what is an assumption that a lot of people have about you that's wrong? And it might be maybe about you or about, 80-year-olds. I don't know.
Oh, right. Good. Well, you can. Here's the first piece. You can teach old dogs new tricks. Yep. But what the assumption about myself that isn't true is that I am a super athlete, and I am when I have a trip on the horizon, then I make sure that I ride and I'm very consistent and I'm very persistent. And on a ride, those things are also true on a ride. And I think they are my strengths. Even, yes, I need to be physically fit and as strong as I can be. And I am not a super athlete. And you don't have to be to take up something. You can start and do what you can, then learn beyond that, gain beyond that. So it is that I am not a super athlete, and that I have more to my life than biking. And people now always say to me, "So when's your next bike trip?" Will anybody say anything that to me once I am not cycling? Well, I'm not at that point at all yet. But my point is, you can keep on, and you can keep on keeping on as you can to your abilities at that time. I think that's a really important thing that I want to remember for myself and to convey to others at any age. I mean, you can hear it as a 20-year-old and think, oh my goodness, life's going to be done at 30. Well, you need to know that I want you to know, I want you to see, I am an example. That's the advantage of being over 80. I am an example that you can keep on. And that's what I want you to know. And but please remember, I am not a super athlete.
I think that's great, because a lot of people assume that, oh, that's good for that person, but I could never do that. And that is totally not true, right? People can accomplish these things just by taking these little steps and continuing on. So I love that message.
Right.
Now, you have a story about a challenge you kind of went through on your first bike ride. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I would like to, and I realize that I have a theme. I didn't, because it's a big truth in my bike riding and my life, is that the little bitty steps move you on down. So my first bike ride, first ever bike ride, going across the United States, and I was riding that day with a woman named Mary Dell, who was 70 and I was 60, and our riding pace was a good match. We matched. Slow. Really slow. Really slow. Our destination for the night was on the far side of a town that had, on one side of the highway, a military base, and on the other side it had a really big manufacturing plant. The agenda, we don't call it the agenda, we call it the itinerary for the day, was set so that, with the assumption that riders would get to the motel at about 2:30. Well, Mary Dill and I are really slow. It was 5 when we got there, and to the town, at the edge of the town, and the plant was coming out and the base was coming out, and there were tons and tons and tons of cars and trucks, and I was scared to death. I was absolutely terrified. And I stopped and I said, I'm not going on. I'm going to stand here. If I have to stand here for 3 days or forever, I can't go on. I am just too frightened. I cannot ride my bicycle. So Mary Dell said, yeah, that's a lot of traffic. That is a lot of traffic. And she took a look and she said, see that patch of grass down there? You think you could walk your bike to that patch of grass? I walked my bike to the patch of grass. Mary Dell looked again. She said, see that driveway? It's about half a block away. Could you ride to that driveway? I did. I rode to that driveway. She broke it down for at least 2 miles into these little bitty increments until the traffic had abated and we were closer to where we were going. But what I learned out of that, it was such a gift to have somebody stand with me and help me. And that's a big learning thing. Having someone stand with you and help you is a tremendous gift. And that by doing those little bits and the next little bit, I could get there and be in the midst of still being frightened, but be able to accomplish what I needed to. And that was such a big, it sticks with me. That's been 23 years ago now. Still is very important to me.
Yeah, that is just absolutely beautiful, because like when we're scared, how much farther can we break those steps down into? What is the smallest little chunk that we can accomplish and give us more courage, right, to keep going.
Right. Yes.
I love that. So that is just beautiful. Thank you. And thank you to Mary Beth, was it?
Mary Dell.
Mary Dell. Thank you to Mary Dell for that beautiful lesson as well. And it's what a blessing to have someone walk with you in that space, because it's important when we are afraid to have someone by our sides who can be a Sherpa. Yeah. So let me see what I forgot what so I would love to get, I love quotes. I think quotes are just so incredibly inspirational. And I would love to get one of your favorite quotes that you have that inspires you, and share that with our listeners here.
My own words, this is short, I bring up for myself, and it is, they are, keep at it. You'll get there. That's it. Keep at it. You'll
That's
get
great. That's great. Easy to remember. I love that. Nice
right.
and short. Can be a
Right.
little mantra as you're, doing
Oh yeah.
whatever you need to do. And I think that's it's beautiful. So
Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for connecting with us here and inspiring our listeners. I know I'm inspired. I'm a late blooming athlete as well. I just started competing in some competitions, and I definitely know it's how empowering it can feel, for health and for being healthy and everything like that. So thank you for inspiring all of the people you do and all of the listeners here, with that message. Where can people learn more about you? I know you do a lot of different things. You do some speaking. You have a blog where you're also inspiring people there. Share where people can connect with you.
All right. I thank you. I'd like to do that. I have a website that's, the name is yesithinkican.com. Now that's an obvious, that's obvious. It's just what I say when I'm going up the hill. Yes, I think I can. Yes, I think I can. So yesithinkican.com.
Wonderful.
I do write a weekly post, and it's called Lin's Bike Notes. You can sign up through the Yes, I Think I Can, or you can just search for Lin's Bike Notes. With regard to the humor, I wanted to add in that during the pandemic, and it was hard, everybody hard, I needed some humor. I make up limericks, and I asked my daughter to film them and put them on YouTube. So if you would go to Lin Bruce limericks, there's a whole batch of them. You can take a look. And but be sure you put in limericks. If you just look Lin Bruce, you're going to get a martial arts expert, and that's not me. Yeah, and the readers, watchers here, if you belong to an organization that brings in speakers, please get in touch with me. I'd like to have a chance to talk. I would. It's Lin, Lin, at yesithinkican.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Lin. We'll
Thanks
have
so
all of
much.
these in the show notes as well. And thank you so much for your time and your inspiration today. And thanks to all of you dreamers, and get on your bike.
Thanks, Andrea. Bye.
Hope that was helpful, and make sure you grab the free guide, Top Tools for Late Starters, on the website at latestartersclub.com. And let's turn dreaming into doing.